April 1970. Three astronauts were on their way to land on the moon. Everything was going perfectly. The world was watching. NASA was confident. Then, a single switch was turned on. A sound echoed through the spacecraft. A violent jolt. Warning lights flashed. And suddenly, 200,000 miles from Earth, Apollo 13 began to die. This was no longer a moon mission. This became the greatest survival story in space history. Apollo 13 launched on April 11, 1970. On board were Jim Lovell, Jack Swigert, Fred Hayes. Their mission was simple: land on the moon, collect samples, return as heroes. For nearly 2 days, everything seemed normal. The spacecraft glided silently through the darkness of space. The moon was getting closer. Mission control was relaxed. Even the astronauts joked during a live TV broadcast. No one knew. Disaster had already been waiting inside the spacecraft from the very beginning. Hours after the broadcast, Mission Control asked the crew to perform a routine procedure: stir the oxygen tanks, a normal task, one they had done many times before. Jack Swigert flipped the switch. For a moment, nothing. Then, the spacecraft shook violently. Warning alarms screamed. Electrical systems started failing. Oxygen pressure was dropping, fast. Then came the calm but chilling words: "Houston, we've had a problem." Inside the spacecraft, one oxygen tank had exploded. The second tank was leaking into space. And with every second, Apollo 13 was losing oxygen, electricity, water, heat. The moon landing was over. Now the only mission was survival. The most terrifying part? They were too far away to turn back. Apollo 13 had already crossed the point where Earth was just a glowing marble in endless darkness. If NASA made one wrong decision, the crew would drift forever into space. Mission Control faced a mystery. What exactly had exploded? How badly was the ship damaged? No one knew. The astronauts looked outside the window. A ghostly white cloud floated beside them. It was their oxygen, their life, escaping into space. That was the moment they realized they might never come home. NASA made a desperate decision. The lunar module, designed for 2 astronauts for 2 days, would now become a lifeboat for 3 men for 4 days. It was never meant to do this. The cabin became freezing cold. Water was rationed. The walls filled with moisture. The astronauts could see their own breath. But an even deadlier problem was rising silently: carbon dioxide. Their CO2 filters were failing, and the replacement filters from the command module didn't fit. A square filter, a round hole. It sounded impossible. Back on Earth, engineers dumped random objects on a table: plastic bags, cardboard, tape hoses, and somehow they built a life-saving solution. The astronauts copied it in space, and the air became breathable again. Instead of landing, Apollo 13 was forced to slingshot around the moon. For a terrifying period, the spacecraft disappeared behind the moon. No communication, no signal, no way to know if the crew was alive. The entire world waited in silence. Then the signal returned. They had made it. But the biggest challenge was still ahead: re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. If the angle was even slightly wrong, they would burn up or bounce off Earth forever. On April 17, 1970, Apollo 13 slammed into Earth's atmosphere. Mission Control went silent. Radio blackout. Seconds felt like hours. Then, a voice. The parachutes opened. Apollo 13 splashed safely into the Pacific Ocean. The mission failed, but the crew survived. NASA later called it a successful failure.